Welcome to Luke Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English Listening Time. I am so excited to be here today because we have a topic that I think is going to help so many of our listeners. But before we get into that, Liam, how has your week been? You look like you have had a very long day.
You caught me, Maggie. It has been a very long day, but a productive one. I actually spent most of my morning trying to fix a very old laptop that my uncle gave me. It was like a time capsule from 15 years ago. It took me forever just to get the thing to turn on. And honestly, it made me realize how much I take our current gadgets for granted.
Oh, I know that feeling. I found an old digital camera in a drawer last week. I remember thinking it was the most amazing piece of equipment I owned back in 2010. Now, the screen is so tiny and the photos look like they were painted with blurry brushes. It is funny how fast things change. Did you manage to fix the laptop, or is it just a very expensive paperweight now?
It is still a work in progress. I had to go through so many cables to find the right charger. But that actually leads us perfectly into what we're talking about today. We are diving into the world of technology, not just the machines, but the words we use to describe our digital lives.
Technology vocabulary. That sounds perfect. I feel like every time I open my phone or computer, I see new words. Even for me, as a learner, sometimes it feels like people are speaking a secret code. Like when my brother told me he was backing up his data to the cloud, I literally looked out the window and wondered how a rainy day helps save his photos.
That is a classic. The cloud is one of those terms that sounds poetic, but is actually very practical. Think of it like this, Maggie. In the old days, if you wanted to keep a secret note, you kept it in a physical box under your bed. If your house flooded, the note was gone. But the cloud is like having a magical box that floats everywhere you go. You can reach into the sky from any house in the world and pull your note out. It's just a network of servers located in huge warehouses, but calling it the cloud makes it sound much lighter and easier to use.
Okay, I like that analogy. So the cloud is just a fancy word for someone else's computer that I'm renting space on.
Exactly. And that's the heart of what we want to do today. We want to break down these tech terms that seem scary and turn them into stories. Because when you learn the story behind a word, you never forget it. For example, have you ever thought about why we call it a mouse?
I assume because it's small and has a tail, right? The wire looks like a tail.
Precisely. Back in the 60s, when the first prototype was built, the inventor noticed that the cord came out of the back and looked exactly like a little rodent. It stuck. Even though most mice today are wireless and don't have tails, we still use the name. It's what we call a legacy term.
A legacy term. Wait, I want to repeat that. Legacy term. So it's a word we keep using even if the original reason for the name is gone.
You got it. You're already using the vocabulary like a pro. Another great example is the icon we use for saving files. On most programs, it's a little square that looks like a floppy disk. Maggie, have you ever actually used a real floppy disk?
I think I saw one in a museum once, or maybe in my dad's office. They're those plastic squares that don't actually hold very much information, right?
Right. You could barely fit one high-quality photo on a floppy disk today. But even though we use high-speed flash drives or the cloud now, that little square icon remains the universal symbol for saving. It's a visual legacy.
This is making me feel much better about not knowing everything. It seems like even the experts are using old ideas to explain new things. But what about the stuff that's happening right now? Like, I keep hearing the word algorithm. My friends say the algorithm showed them a funny video, or the algorithm knows what they want to buy. It sounds like a ghost in the machine.
An algorithm is definitely the buzzword of the decade. Let me tell you a story about how I explained this to my grandmother. She's an amazing cook. I told her that an algorithm is just like a recipe. If she wants to make her famous apple pie, she follows a specific set of steps. Step 1, peel the apples. Step 2, mix the sugar. If she follows the steps exactly, she gets a pie every time. A computer algorithm is the same. It's a set of instructions. The social media algorithm has a recipe for your happiness. It says, if Maggie likes a video about cats, show her 3 more videos about dogs. If she watches those, show her a video about a parrot. It's just following a recipe based on what you do.
So the algorithm is just a digital chef mixing up content for me? That makes it sound way less like a robot taking over the world.
Most technology is simpler than it sounds once you strip away the jargon. Jargon is another good word for you. It means the special words or expressions used by a particular profession that are difficult for others to understand. Tech people love their jargon because it makes things sound faster and more efficient.
Jargon. I definitely have a lot of that in my life. I think the biggest challenge for me is when words I already know in English suddenly have a different meaning in technology, like a stream. I know a stream is a small river, but now everyone is streaming movies.
That's a beautiful way to look at it. Think about the water. If you go to a stream, the water is constantly moving past you. You don't have to carry the whole river home in a bucket to enjoy the water. You just sit by the bank and watch it flow. Streaming a movie is the same. In the past, you had to download the whole file, which is like carrying the bucket of water home. Now, the data flows to your device bit by bit while you watch it. You don't own the water, you just watch the stream.
That is so clear. I'm sitting on the bank of the digital river. I love that. But Liam, what happens when the stream stops? My screen just shows a little circle spinning around and around. My brother calls it buffering, but I call it annoying.
Buffering is actually a very interesting concept. Imagine you are reading a book, but you are a very slow reader. Your friend is a very fast page turner. So to make sure you don't get stuck, your friend starts turning pages and putting them in a pile for you, so you always have a few pages ready to read ahead of time. That pile is the buffer. When your internet is slow, the computer is trying to build that pile of data so the movie can play smoothly. When you see that spinning circle, it means the computer has run out of its pile and is waiting for the friend to turn more pages.
So the buffer is like a little waiting room for my data.
Exactly. It's a temporary storage area. We use buffers in real life too. If you have a busy day, you might leave 10 minutes of extra time between meetings. That's your buffer. It protects you from being late if something goes wrong.
I need a much bigger buffer for my morning routine then. I'm always rushing. Picking up right where we left off, I really need to apply that idea of a buffer to my real life. But Liam, speaking of things going wrong, I had a massive tech disaster yesterday. I was working on a presentation for my English class, and suddenly my whole screen turned blue. Everything just froze. I couldn't move the mouse, I couldn't type, nothing. I panicked.
Ah, the classic crash. That is a word we use when a program or an entire operating system stops working. It is a bit like a car crash, but for your data. When a computer crashes, it usually means the instructions it was following got all tangled up. It's like 2 people trying to walk through a very narrow door at the same time and getting stuck. Tell me, what did you do when it happened?
Well, first I yelled a little bit, then I remembered what you always tell me. I tried to restart it. I held down the power button until the lights went off. When I turned it back on, a message popped up saying it was checking for a bug. Now, I know what a bug is in nature, like an ant or a beetle, but I'm pretty sure there wasn't a spider inside my laptop.
You would be surprised. The history of that word is actually one of my favorite stories. Back in the 1940s, when computers were the size of entire rooms, a famous scientist named Grace Hopper was working on a machine called the Harvard Mark II. The machine started having problems, and when they opened it up to see what was wrong, they found a literal moth trapped inside one of the parts. They removed the moth and taped it into their logbook with the note, "First actual case of bug being found." From then on, whenever a computer had a mistake in its code, they called it a bug, and the process of fixing it is called debugging.
No way! So every time I'm debugging my code or a program, I'm technically looking for a tiny digital moth?
In a way, yes. It's another one of those legacy terms we talked about earlier. It turns a frustrating mistake into something that sounds almost like a little adventure. Speaking of adventures, let's look at some of those difficult words you mentioned earlier. You used 3 great ones just now: crash, bug, and restart. Let's look at a few more that might be tricky for our listeners. How about the word browse?
I use a browser every day, like Chrome or Safari, but what does the word actually mean outside of technology?
To browse originally meant to look at things casually without a specific goal. Imagine you're in a large bookstore. You aren't looking for a specific title, you're just walking along the shelves, picking up a book here, reading a page there, and putting it back. You are browsing. When you're on the internet, you're doing the same thing. You are moving from one page to another looking for something interesting. That's why we call the software a web browser. It's your tool for wandering through the digital library.
That makes so much sense. I definitely spend too much time browsing social media when I should be studying. Another word I hear all the time is upload. I know download means to get something from the internet, but upload is the opposite, right?
Exactly. Think of the internet as a giant warehouse on top of the hill. If you want something from the warehouse, you bring it down to your house. That's a download. If you have a photo on your phone and you want to put it in the warehouse for everyone to see, you have to carry it up the hill. That's an upload. We use this for everything now. When you post a photo on Instagram, you are uploading. When you send an email with an attachment, you are uploading that file to the mail server.
Okay, warehouse on a hill. I can visualize that. What about sync? My phone always asks if I want to sync my contacts. It sounds like something from a movie about synchronized swimming.
It's actually very similar to synchronized swimming. The word is short for synchronize, which means to make things happen at the same time or to stay in agreement. Imagine you have two watches. To make sure they both show 12 o'clock, you sync them. In technology, if you have a list of phone numbers on your laptop and a list on your phone, you want them to be exactly the same. When you sync them, the computer checks both lists and updates them so they match perfectly. If you add a new friend's number on your phone, syncing makes sure that number appears on your laptop.
So it's like keeping all my devices in a team meeting so they all know the same information.
Precisely. It keeps your digital life organized. Now, Maggie, I want to challenge you. Can you think of a tech word that really confused you when you first heard it?
Oh, definitely. The word firewall. When I first heard it, I thought it was a safety feature if the computer caught on fire. I was looking for a little fire extinguisher icon.
That's a brilliant guess, and you're not far off. In the physical world, a firewall is a thick, solid wall in a building or a car designed to stop a fire from spreading from one room to another. It's a barrier. In the digital world, a firewall is a barrier between your computer and the rest of the internet. It acts like a security guard at a gate. It looks at every piece of data trying to enter your computer and asks, "Are you safe?" If the data looks like a virus or a hacker trying to get in, the firewall blocks it. It keeps the bad stuff out so your digital house doesn't catch fire, metaphorically speaking.
That's lovely. I feel much safer knowing I have a digital security guard. So to recap our vocabulary spotlight, we have crash for when things break, bug for a mistake in the code, browse for looking around, upload for sending things up to the internet warehouse, and sync for making sure everything matches. Oh, and firewall for my digital security guard.
You are a fast learner, Maggie. These words are the building blocks. Once you understand these, you can start to understand more complex ideas like encryption or bandwidth.
Wait, bandwidth? That sounds like how many people are in a musical group.
Not quite. Think of a highway. If the highway has only one lane, only a few cars can travel at once. If the highway has 6 lanes, a lot of cars can travel very fast. Bandwidth is the width of your digital highway. If you have high bandwidth, you can download movies, play games, and have a video call all at the same time because your highway is very wide. If you have low bandwidth, it's like a traffic jam. Everything moves slowly because the road is too narrow for all that data.
I definitely have low bandwidth at my apartment. Every time my roommate starts watching a movie, my video calls start to buffer. Now I can tell her, "Hey, you're taking up all the lanes on our highway." That point you just made about the highway really explains why I get so frustrated with my internet speed at home. But now that we have all this great vocabulary, how can our listeners actually use this in real life? I mean, it is one thing to know the words, but it is another thing to actually talk to a tech support person or explain a problem to a friend in English.
That is a great question, Maggie. The best way to use this is to start by describing your digital actions out loud as you do them. It sounds silly, but it works. When you're sitting at your computer, say to yourself, I am opening my browser to browse for a new recipe. Or, I'm going to upload these photos to the cloud so I can sync them with my tablet. By narrating your life, you turn these abstract concepts into muscle memory.
I actually do that sometimes. I feel like a character in a movie. I will say, okay, Maggie, time to debug this document because the formatting is all wrong. It really does help the words stick in my brain. But what about when things really break? What's the best way to ask for help?
Accuracy is key. Instead of saying, my computer is broken, try to use the specific words we learned. You could say, my browser keeps crashing whenever I try to stream a video. Or, I think there's a bug in this app because it won't sync with my email. When you use specific terms, the person helping you can find the solution much faster. It shows you have a clear understanding of the situation. It's also helpful to mention your bandwidth or if you have checked your firewall settings.
That's great advice. It makes me feel more powerful, like I'm not just a victim of the technology, but I actually understand the system. Do you have any other stories about tech mishaps? I love hearing about when even the experts get it wrong.
Oh, I have plenty. I remember back when I was first learning about servers. I was working at a small office and the boss told me that the server was down. Now, in my head, a server was a person at a restaurant who brings you food. I spent about 10 minutes looking for a person who had fallen over or fainted in the hallway. I eventually realized that the server was just a big computer in a closet that provided data to all our other computers. It serves the data, which is why it has that name. I felt so embarrassed, but it taught me that even the most common English words can have a totally different life in the world of technology.
That is hilarious. I can just imagine you looking for a poor waiter in an office building. I guess my lesson of the day is that technology is just a human way of solving problems, and the language we use reflects that. Whether it's a moth in a machine or a highway for data, these are all just stories we tell to make sense of the digital world.
You hit the nail on the head. Technology changes every single day. New gadgets come out, new apps are developed, and new jargon is created. But if you focus on the core concepts and the stories behind the words, you won't get left behind. You'll have the tools to navigate any digital landscape.
Well, I feel a lot more confident now. I think I'm going to go home and try to fix my own laptop. I'll check the browser, look for any bugs, and maybe even try to clear my cache. Wait, cache. That's another word. We didn't talk about that one.
Ha! Let's save that for next time, Maggie. We have already covered so much ground today. We don't want to overload our listeners' bandwidth, right?
Good point. My own mental highway is feeling a bit crowded right now. Thank you so much for all the explanations, Liam. It's been a blast as always.
My pleasure, Maggie. And to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us on English Listening Time. Don't be afraid of the tech talk. Just take it one word at a time, find the story, and you'll be speaking like a Silicon Valley expert in no time.
Exactly. Go out there, browse the world, upload some happiness, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.